Every day, a dog peered into a hidden alley, and when someone finally investigated, what they discovered left everyone shocked. Dear viewers, welcome to our channel. Please subscribe to receive more stories every day. In a small, quiet coastal town in Greece, where the streets are lined with cobblestones and the salty air from the sea fills the breeze, there was a stray dog that no one could quite forget. His name was Max, a scruffy brown-furred stray with gentle eyes who roamed the town's market square every day, searching for food. But Max wasn't like other strays. Something about him was different, and his actions would soon leave the entire town astonished. Max, with his dirty fur and weary look, was a common sight to the townspeople, who had grown used to seeing him meander through the marketplace. He would sniff around stalls, hoping for a scrap of food, and sometimes, if a vendor was in a particularly good mood, they would toss him a piece of leftover bread. Despite living on the streets, Max was friendly. He loved people, and the wag of his tail whenever someone glanced his way showed he hadn't lost his faith in human kindness. One particularly warm afternoon, a young woman named Claire stepped out of a small grocery shop, her arms full of groceries. Claire had recently moved to the town to escape the fast-paced life of the city. She had always loved animals but had never owned a pet herself. As she made her way down the street, her path crossed with Max's. Claire hadn't noticed Max at first, but when she heard a soft whimper, she turned around to see the shaggy dog sitting a few feet away. His large eyes focused on her bag of groceries. His stomach growled loudly, and Claire's heart melted. It didn't take much to see that this dog was hungry. Without a second thought, Claire reached into her bag and pulled out a piece of bread. She hesitated for a moment, wondering if she should be giving away food, but the look in Max's eyes made her decision for her. She crouched down and held out the bread, offering it to the dog. "Here you go, boy," she said softly. Max approached cautiously, sniffing the air as he slowly moved closer to her. Claire smiled as she watched him take the bread gently from her hand. But to her surprise, instead of eating it right away, Max picked up the bread in his mouth and trotted off down the street, leaving her standing there, puzzled. The next day, Claire was walking through the market again, and once more she spotted Max. This time he seemed to be waiting for her. His tail wagged as soon as he saw her, and he trotted over, his eyes full of recognition. Claire, now intrigued by the dog's odd behavior from the previous day, pulled out another piece of bread from her bag and offered it to him. Just like the day before, Max took the bread and trotted off without eating it. Curiosity gnawed at Claire. Why wasn't he eating the food right away? Where was he going? On the third day, Claire decided to follow Max. After offering him some food, she kept a safe distance as the dog led her down the cobbled streets. Max moved with purpose, weaving through the narrow alleys of the town until they reached a secluded part of the market that Claire hadn't noticed before. There, tucked away between two buildings, was a narrow alley, barely visible unless you knew where to look. Max stopped at the entrance to the alley, glancing back at Claire as if to make sure she was following. Then, with surprising gentleness, he placed the food on the ground and nudged it into the dark space. Claire watched in confusion. What could possibly be in that alley? Max sat down, his eyes fixed on the narrow gap between the buildings. Claire's heart raced. Something was hidden there. She cautiously moved closer and knelt beside Max, peering into the shadows. At first she couldn't see anything, but as her eyes adjusted to the dim light, she caught a glimpse of movement. There, huddled in the shadows, were several tiny kittens. Claire gasped. The kittens were so small, barely old enough to walk, and they looked terrified. Their little bodies trembled as they meowed softly, pressing themselves against the walls of the alley. Claire's heart broke at the sight. These kittens had been abandoned, left alone to fend for themselves. Max, this stray dog who had barely enough food for himself, had been bringing them food every day. Claire immediately understood. Max wasn't just looking for food for himself. He was caring for these helpless kittens. She had never seen such an act of kindness from an animal before. Max had been sacrificing what little food he found to keep the kittens alive. Claire could hardly believe what she was witnessing. Without wasting another moment, she pulled out her phone and called the local animal rescue center. She explained the situation, and within half an hour a team of volunteers arrived. They approached the alley cautiously, unsure how Max would react, but the dog remained calm, as if he knew they were there to help. The volunteers gently pulled the kittens from the alley, wrapping them in soft blankets. There were 5 of them, all tiny and weak. Claire could see that without Max's help, they wouldn't have survived much longer. The volunteers were amazed by Max's actions. "I've never seen anything like this," one of them said, shaking his head in disbelief. "This dog saved their lives." As the kittens were loaded into the rescue van, Claire knelt beside Max, who was watching the scene with quiet intensity. She stroked his fur gently. "You're a hero, Max," she whispered. "A real hero." Max looked up at her, his tail wagging softly, and in that moment, Claire made a decision. This dog had given so much, and now it was time for someone to give back to him. "How would you like to come home with me, Max?" she asked, smiling down at him. Max's tail wagged harder, as if he understood exactly what she was saying. From that day forward, Max no longer wandered the streets alone. Claire took him into her home, where he quickly settled into his new life. For the first time in years, Max had a warm bed to sleep in, regular meals, and someone who loved him. Claire couldn't imagine her life without him. The kittens, meanwhile, thrived under the care of the rescue center. Claire visited them often, watching as they grew stronger with each passing day. When they were old enough, 4 of the kittens were adopted into loving homes, but Claire couldn't bear to part with the smallest one, a fluffy little kitten with bright green eyes. She named her Mittens, and just like that, her little family grew. Max, now called Buddy, quickly became Mittens' protector, just as he had been for the kittens in the alley. The 2 of them formed an inseparable bond, and Claire often found them curled up together, Buddy's large body wrapped protectively around the tiny kitten. Life in the small coastal town was peaceful, and Claire couldn't have been happier. She had found not only a loyal companion in Buddy but also a sense of purpose. Inspired by Buddy's incredible act of kindness, Claire began writing a children's book based on his story. The book, titled Buddy's Brave Heart, was a heartwarming tale of friendship and compassion, and it quickly gained popularity. Soon Buddy's story spread beyond the town. Newspapers picked up the story of the heroic dog who had saved a litter of kittens, and Claire was invited to speak at schools and libraries, where she shared Buddy's tale with children and adults alike. Buddy, always by her side, became something of a local celebrity, known for his gentle nature and his extraordinary act of kindness. But for Claire, the real reward was the bond she had formed with Buddy and Mittens. Her once lonely life was now filled with love and joy, and she couldn't have asked for more. As the years passed, Claire continued to work with the local animal rescue center, helping to care for stray animals and finding them loving homes. And through it all, Buddy remained her loyal companion, always ready to offer a wag of his tail or a comforting nuzzle. In the end, it wasn't just the kittens that Buddy had saved. It was Claire too. Dear viewers, thank you for watching. If you liked this story, please subscribe to our channel to receive more stories every day. Share with us what you think of this story.